Basically, every piece of information that we've had regarding Captain America 4, which started out as something else and now is Brave New World. New World Order, I think, might have been the original. It's gone through some name changes, has been negative. It sounds like it's a very troubled production. We were originally going to get the Serpent Society. They've been cut out. They have a new mix of the film after doing the first or maybe 2 rounds of reshoots on this bad boy, and they are not done. Apparently, they're going to need another round of reshoots at a minimum, and they have the entire summer blocked off for reshoots for Captain America 4 because test audiences have seen the film and they are not happy. In fact, they are not happy on a multitude of reasons or levels. That's probably a better way to say that. One of them being the politics within Captain America 4, but I guess the problem is not what you and I would expect after seeing phases 4 and 5 of the MCU and probably going too hard in the paint on this or that. It turns out there's another issue with the Captain America 4 politics. The biggest issue, let's be honest, is that it's Falcon Cap and not the real Captain America. A Falcon should just be Falcon. It's absolutely anchored down by that Falcon and the Winter Soldier TV show that introduced the first version, or at least the MCU version of Falcon Cap, which is absolutely terrible. Was not a good version of the character. People are never going to like this version of Captain America. It's not Anthony Mackie's fault. It's Kevin Feige's fault. It's Marvel Studios' fault. And they are going to be paying a price in money and reshoots on this bad idea. This is coming from Oh How I Marvel at These Marvels on Twitter. Apparently, audiences were unimpressed by the film's action scenes and the chemistry between Cap and his love interest. However, the biggest issue was how audiences responded to the film's political content. You might think this would mean audiences found it divisive, but it was actually worse than that. They found it boring. I'm told that the overall feel was that the political material was uninspired and unengaging, that audiences found it lacked nuance and was overly expository and really slowed the movie down. And people didn't even like it because it was too woke. They just didn't like it because it was too boring. That is not a good place to begin with. That means your script sucked. That means your plot didn't flow very well, and it bogged down under the weight of all the stupid political nonsense that you had to throw in there just to make the story maybe work, which is one of the problems that really came up during the Captain America Winter Soldier TV show. I'm certainly not surprised that it's creeped its way into the Captain America 4 production itself. Now, these test audiences apparently were none too thrilled, obviously, about the chemistry between Anthony Mackie and whoever his co-star is. I don't remember her name, but apparently he's going to have a love interest. They might not have any chemistry. Do we have another Anakin and Padme situation? Because that would be absolutely awful.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Probably the worst on-screen romance I've ever seen in a movie history. Although, if you watch Thor: The Dark World, Thor and Jane Foster do not have much chemistry in that movie. They were much better in the first one. So it's not like the MCU under Kevin Feige hasn't had these issues before, obviously with the Thor romance really falling apart. And I don't know, does it get better in Thor Love and Thunder? I would say not. And then it sounds like the action scenes weren't all that amazing. They didn't really wow people. And those are going to be, I guess, the biggest parts of the reshoots because those cost the most money. They got all the CGI, you got practical effects, you got explosions and all that stuff. And it sounds like they're actually cutting 3 entire action sequences and they're going to reshoot and rethink them to make the movie flow better because Disney do not want to move off the release date for Captain America 4 in 2025. They've already delayed it a couple of times. And we do know that Deadpool and Wolverine is sitting in one of the slots that Captain America Brave New World was supposed to release in. And they do not want to vacate that 2025 release date because they think it's good, they think it's prime time, and they probably don't want to sink any more money into this. Is there a chance, and I think there really is a chance, that the budget actually goes bigger than the Marvels? They actually wasted $300 million on the Marvels movie just for shooting it that we know of, for a movie that only grossed $200 million in the end. And that wasn't even accounting for marketing budget and expenses and probably a lot of other expenses that we don't know about. Could this budget be like an Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny type budget, $380 million, $400 million now that we're on 2 or 3 rounds of reshoots? And they're not just reshooting character scenes, they're reshooting the big action scenes. They're having to engage all that kind of stuff. Lots and lots of work going into that and a lot of money going down the drain for a movie that likely was always going to bomb, especially once you had Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the TV show on Disney Plus, which just quite frankly was really, really bad and took all the worst aspects of Falcon Cap from Marvel Comics and incorporated into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is something that actually kind of fits with Kate Bishop Hawkeye. If you read Kate Bishop Hawkeye in the comic books, she's not a good character. She's not very likable. She never has to overcome anything. But if you watch the Hawkeye show on Disney Plus, they kind of fixed the character. They forgot to fix Falcon Cap for this movie. And Disney do think, at least they're claiming they believe they know what went wrong with the MCU and some of their other major franchises. But I think they've got it all wrong, and Captain America 4 is an amazing example of that. A new report from insider Matt Belloni reveals what factors Disney reportedly believe are contributing to a recent pattern of box office failures. In a recent What I'm Hearing newsletter, Belloni reported internally people have chalked up the slide to a dilution of focus and resources during the COVID-era rush to seed Disney Plus and Hulu with as much content as possible. Everyone was going 100 miles per hour, the thinking goes, while also working mostly at home and away from creative collaborators, and the output ramped up far beyond what the company was built to deliver. Disney made decisions without thinking them through or testing ideas properly, and the content ultimately suffered. You certainly will not hear me claim that the idea that quantity over quality did not affect not just the MCU, but I guess maybe Star Wars, perhaps, but certainly Pixar and some of these other studios under Disney. Certainly, the MCU suffered the most because they wanted to put out the most content. It was the biggest franchise in the world when the pandemic shutdowns happened, and they were launching Disney Plus at the time, and they certainly needed new content because they just didn't have a whole lot of new stuff. So I can understand them saying we took on too many projects at once. But if you think about it, most of these projects were announced before the pandemic shutdown. Captain America 4 was already in the pipeline. The Marvels was already in the pipeline. I think it was Captain America 2 at the time. Blade was already in the pipeline. Now, that's a good project that should make them money, but they had already lined up all these projects to come out before the COVID shutdown really even happened. Agatha Harkness was already in production. Wonder Man was already being talked about. Ironheart had already been decided on as being a program that they were going to go forward with, and they chose the wrong heroes. They watered down their franchise with less than stellar heroes, and that's the real problem here. Falcon is great. Falcon is a great character. He's an amazing sidekick. One of the best sidekicks in the entire MCU. In fact, I'm thinking about it. Maybe Winter Soldier is better, but I don't know if he's even a sidekick. He's more of an anti-hero, especially after Captain America, the Winter Soldier movie and all that kind of stuff. Now, normally, side characters do have a hard time coming into their own and holding up their own franchises. Very few legacy characters or side characters from the past ever grow up, get their own mantle, and become their own hero that's at the stature of whoever they were apprenticing under. You know, Wally West would be an example of a character that maybe surpassed the original, although I guess Barry Allen is certainly more well-known and popular right now. Nightwing Dick Grayson is a legacy character or a sidekick that did ascend up and probably can hold his own movie at this point. He certainly can hold his own comic book. But there are tons of sidekicks, and most of them never grow up to that kind of status where they can really hold their own, especially in Marvel Comics. They are not great with the legacy heroes or the sidekicks. So choosing to make a solo movie with a sidekick, but then calling him Captain America probably was just a bad idea to begin with. They never really established him like that. He's an awesome character. Maybe if they did a TV show with Falcon and War Machine, that would be pretty cool. I didn't really like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but you could probably get away with it on television. I don't know if this character was ever going to be popular enough to be a headliner in a movie that I imagine Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios and Bob Iger and Disney would like to break $800 million, make $1 billion, on a good day, maybe even more than that if you're at the height of the MCU. But that was probably never be in the cards. People like Chris Evans as Captain America. People like Steve Rogers as Captain America. People like Tony Stark as Iron Man. Although stating it like that, I guess you could see Spider-Man as Iron Man's sidekick within the MCU. That's certainly never been the case in comic books. He was more like Spider-Lad or Iron Lad, where his mentor was Tony Stark himself. So I guess maybe they got one character up there. But Spider-Man is a brand unto himself and traditionally has outsold all of these characters, including Tony Stark, the biggest character within the MCU. So they picked a whole lot of bad projects led by characters that were never big time stars anyway. And I think that's really their ultimate undoing. And certainly, I think going quantity over quality did rush the decline of the MCU. But I don't think that's ultimately what the deciding factor is. They made a lot of really bad decisions. Case in point, Asked by agents of fandom whether or not Ironheart or Wonder Man would ever actually come out, particularly in light of the numerous scheduling and staffing shakeups reported around their respective productions, Marvel Studios exec Brad Winderbaum affirmed, yeah, absolutely, we're editing both of those shows as we speak. They're spectacular, they're amazing, and they're different. We're able to explore corners of the universe that are really exciting. Riri Williams is one of them, and I cannot wait for people to meet Simon Williams. The problem with Riri Williams' Ironheart is she's just a knockoff Tony Stark. She's Tony Stark light without any of the charisma or interesting character aspects or personality or kind of stuff like that. You know, she was introduced in Black Panther Wakanda Forever, and she was a completely duplicate character to Shuri. They were doing the exact same stuff. They are essentially the exact same character. Their skill sets and everything that defines them are basically the same, except one's from Wakanda and the other one, I believe, is from Chicago or whatever. This was a terrible idea. Why did they make a show based on a comic book series that continuously gets canceled? There is no staying power for Riri Williams' Ironheart within comic books. They tried it. It didn't work. They said, well, we need Tony Stark. We can't bring him back because he'll overshadow Riri Williams. Let's bring him back as an AI. And then he was her AI mentor. People didn't like that. It still didn't sell. They just wanted Tony Stark, Iron Man, back in comic books. And this character has just failed and failed and failed. And it's basically meaningless to Marvel comic book fans and is essentially meaningless to Marvel Cinematic Universe fans because their introduction was so poor within Black Panther Wakanda Forever. It's just something in there that weighs the film down and bloats out the runtime that really didn't need to be there to begin with. You didn't even need the character. Like I said, Shuri literally, with her skill set, can solve every single thing that Riri Williams accomplishes within the Black Panther Wakanda Forever show. It was just a bad idea. Now, as far as Simon Williams goes in Wonder Man, you know, you could probably do something with that character. I don't think race swapping him was the smartest move, but he is more of an obscure character within the Marvel comic book universe. I don't think anyone's really clamoring for this. But the good thing there is people don't detest the character like they detest Riri Williams and Ironheart. They haven't outright rejected the concept of Wonder Man. There's probably something you could do with the character. He's kind of a blank slate. You know, if you want to race swap the character, okay. But you've really put that character behind the 8 ball because you're going to have so many bad shows based on characters nobody cares about. Once he arrives, there's nothing really different about him. You're like, oh, it's the next Agatha Harkness. Who cares? It's the next Riri Williams Ironheart character. Who cares? It's the next nothing character within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And unfortunately, Kevin Feige and Marvel Studios have set up fans to treat these characters in that manner to where they probably could have done something more in line with what happened with Guardians of the Galaxy, where you had all the established heroes and the teams and everything that you're really familiar with that people just kind of know, even if they didn't read the comic books. And then you throw this little wild card out there with Guardians of the Galaxy with a really talented filmmaker, and it kind of blows up because people trust the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's something different that they don't really know about, but it was exciting. But with the string of flops that they've had with movies and certainly on Disney Plus, nobody's going to be looking forward to seeing Wonder Man. And they've kind of set it up that way by not relying on the pillars of the Marvel Universe itself. They forgot to build up new pillars after Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans were kind of going to be done with their Marvel Cinematic Universe stuff. Sure, you still had Chris Hemsworth as Thor. He could be the headliner. Great character, a lot of charisma. But, you know, Thor Love and Thunder basically ruined that character. And they've done a lot of damage to the characters that could be good. I mean, the last version we saw of Hulk is fucking Doofus Hulk by Mark Ruffalo. And that thing was just an enormous turnoff. And we'll probably be lucky if Marvel Studios even makes it to Secret Wars when they can reboot this and reintroduce all the characters people actually want to pay to see. But I do not believe Disney and Marvel Studios have figured out exactly what's wrong and why people aren't interested in their products. Certainly, the quantity over quality thing is a problem. The very cookie-cutter nature of Marvel Cinematic Universe storytelling is a problem, but it's also they don't have a lot of heroes people are interested in. And certainly, Falcon Cap is going to be one of those, and it's going to be a huge bomb. They should stop putting any money into this movie. It probably doesn't matter what they do. It's not really salvageable at this point. It probably wasn't salvageable when they decided to announce the project. If you'd like more information regarding comic books, comic book movies, TV shows, all that kind of stuff, I do invite you to come over and check out the Thinking Critical Patreon. We have a lot of fun over there. 8 hours of brand new podcasts every single week, over 32 hours of new podcasts every single month on the Patreon. In the video description, there's a link that you can go check it out. All your favorite guests are there waiting with awesome content that you want. Trust me.